Let's unbox the Micro Galaxy Squadron Darth Vader's TIE Advanced Launch Edition. Villa Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it. Hello there, thanks for visiting Villa Varykino. Each time I start collecting a new Star Wars product line like Micro Galaxy Squadron, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep everything in their packaging or whether I'm going to open it up. So when I started collecting Series 1 of the Micro Galaxy Squadron line, I kept almost all of it in their packaging. Around the same time, I also got heavily into the Hot Wheels Starships Select line. And again, on that one, I kept them in their boxes. Fast forward to today, and I've now opened up all of my Hot Wheels Starship Select vehicles, and I've got to say I really enjoyed the process of getting them out of their boxes and on display on their display stands. So I thought it's time to go back and open up the rest of my Micro Galaxy Squadron Star Wars vehicles as well, get them out of their packaging and add them to my loose displays. So we're jumping back to Series 1 with Darth Vader's TIE Advanced. You can see it still has the Launch Edition sticker there as well. So definitely time to open this one up. It's been in the plastic for quite some time. I'm really excited to get this one open. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up really soon, I'll take a closer look at the vehicle out of the packaging. We'll go over all of the cool details and the minifig there. But first, let's take a quick look at the packaging. The Micro Galaxy Squadron line is divided into different vehicle sizes. For this particular ship, it is part of the Starfighter class. So the packaging style for the Starfighter class is a large clear plastic bubble with a cardboard backing card, as we can see here. We have an insert in the front bubble there with the Micro Galaxy Squadron logo there, accented in a silver foil. We also have a silver stripe here right at the bottom with the ship name, Darth Vader's TIE Advanced. It also has a number. This is number 16 on the whole Micro Galaxy Squadron line. Of course, we're going all the way back to Series 1. We have that red mark there for Series 1 on that left edge. We've got a really nice clear bubble. Really cool if you want to keep your ships in their packaging because it lets in a lot of light. I can really see a lot of angles. We've got the ship pointing up to the top left. I can kind of see the cockpit and some of those details there looking from the side. Of course, we've got a clear plastic top letting in a lot of light. I do think it's interesting that we've got this large cardboard panel coming up here on the right hand side, not letting us look through to see the details there at the end. Instead, we've got this really cool artwork of Darth Vader's TIE Advanced in a space battle. We've got a TIE fighter, an X-wing, and of course we've got some blaster bolts there as well. Very cool. I do like the space battle artwork that's usually inside the packaging. Just kind of adds a whole scene around the ship. We have a couple of inserts here. We have a small picture showing that the Darth Vader minifigure included, as we can see on the front there, will fit inside the cockpit. Very useful there. And up here on the top of the backing card, we can see that fantastic gold foil Launch Edition sticker with the Millennium Falcon sort of zooming there. I like to keep my packaging, especially because of these unique foil stickers. If you ever find a rare or chase variant, then you'll have a neat foil sticker here on the front of the bubble. So because those rare stickers and chase stickers are on the clear plastic bubble, I tend to end up keeping my whole packaging, but especially the backing cards, because I really like the fact that they put the Launch Edition sticker on the backing card rather than on the front bubble. So you can discard the rest of this if you don't have the space or you just don't really want to. You can still keep the backing card and keep that Launch Edition sticker intact, which I really like. Okay, moving on to the back. Like usual, we've got the little collectible blueprint that you can cut out and keep in case you want to discard the rest of your packaging. Just a fun little memento there. The blueprint style with two different versions of Darth Vader's TIE Advanced from the front and sort of from the top view there. And over on the side, like usual, we can see we've got sort of a hologram version of the ship showing a few features. This is quite unusual. Now, of course, usually there's some things to open and sort of little components to move like landing gear, but Darth Vader's TIE Advanced doesn't have landing gear. So we have the cockpit. So I feel like Jazware has included a couple of other interesting features to give it a little bit more playability here. Unlike some of the other versions, we can actually pop the wings off. That's a little bit of sort of a battle damage mode that we don't usually see in this particular product line. Certainly, I don't really sort of feel the need to pull the wings off. I don't necessarily play with these vehicles, but I think that that's an interesting aspect there. And it looks like we've also got a panel at the back to lift up to kind of have a look at a little bit of a, I don't know, exposed engine display. that one's going to be really interesting. I can't wait to check that one out. Of course, underneath the hologram image here, we can see that this one is the Starfighter class, as noted there. And of course, we've got the buy them all section here, the collect them all of some of the other starships from this particular Series 1. We have standard releases here in the Starfighter class, and then we have 2 chase versions there to track down. These ones, unfortunately, are really hard to find, of course. One of the sort of fun aspects of this line is collecting those rare ones, but then of course it can be tricky and you feel like you miss out a little bit if you can't find them. So it has its positives and negatives. I found a few chases myself, but it can be very, very hard, and there's still quite a few on my shopping list. So sometimes it's a bit of a tease seeing these on the back, because you can't just go along to your local store and just buy which ones you want, not like the ones over here. So overall, as you can see, I really enjoyed admiring this one through the plastic packaging, that unique launch edition sticker there. The underside is pretty plain, but I think it's done its time in its packaging. I'm excited to open this one up, so let's get stuck into it. Here's a quick look at this really cool space battle art on the backing card that was hidden behind the bubble. I really like the sort of the bay here from the Star Destroyer looming overhead, and then we've got all of these X-Wings and TIE fighters. It's really cool. I love the artwork on these backing cards. So now I have Darth Vader's TIE Advanced Vehicle and the minifigure out of the packaging. We can go over all of the details, and like usual, I'm going to start with the minifigure. So of course, this is not my first Darth Vader minifigure from the range. I was fortunate enough to be able to find Darth Vader's Sith Interceptor from Series 5. That one was a rare, so that one also included a Darth Vader minifigure. So I was curious to see if there was much of a difference between this Series 1 version of the Darth Vader minifigure and Series 5. So let's do a quick comparison. Darth Vader's Sith Interceptor also came with a astromech droid, you can see there. So one thing I notice is that these Series 1 figures don't have that blueprint image on the back like we have in later series. I think, of course, you're not really going to notice it unless you're opening up your toys, but I think it just adds a little bit of something extra, and it lets you really appreciate all of the fine detail that goes into these figures. So I like that that's a little detail that's now in the newer series. But taking a closer look at these two figures, they're very small, but I can already see a lot of difference, which I thought was really interesting. So Series 1, all black. I can see that removable cape there, the articulation at the arms, but he's only got a very small little paint application there at the belt. I was surprised. I thought, to be honest, I hadn't taken a really close look. I thought I had remembered that there was at least a painted chest box, that being a very central detail, with the different buttons and things like that, but nope, it's plain black. Just that belt, you almost wonder why they bothered. It is pretty much all black. The belt, I thought, was an interesting choice for paint apps. Now, bringing in the Series 5 Darth Vader, you can see how much more extra detail they have added with those paint apps. We've got the silver on the shoulders and across that chest panel. We've got the chest box and the belt there as well. So, bit of an upgrade there. Of course, both of these are pretty much well hidden when you put them in their respective vehicle cockpits. So it's a little bit of, it doesn't really matter if you're putting the vehicle in the cockpit. If you like to perhaps stand the figure outside of it, you're really going to notice it. Of course, this one is a lot harder to find, being one of those rare versions. Only 15,000 of this particular one. This one's going to be easier to find, but the painting on this one's just so much better. Glad to see that they're sort of upping their game as they go along. Some toy manufacturers kind of decrease what we get over time, so that's fun to see. So, of course, this one's pretty much going to be hidden inside the cockpit, but let's just pull him out and go over the details and sort of get him ready to go in that cockpit. So here we go. We can see that we have Darth Vader's iconic cape as a separate piece there. It's not sculpted to bend, so if we're going to put him in a seated position, this is not going to work. So it's kind of funny that we have these pieces. This is really only for sort of the display if we're going to be putting the figure outside of it. They're really tiny. Personally, I fret about having something this small on a shelf. I think you'd have to have it behind glass, because the idea of this tiny little thing, getting caught by a breeze from somebody walking by and just kind of flying off the shelf. I much prefer to put my little figures inside the cockpit. So generally I keep the capes stored in those little plastic containers and store it with the rest of my packaging there. So it just kind of clips around the shoulder. As you can see, we've got a little bit of a cutout there. I like the sculpting on it. Definitely adds a little bit more something extra to Vader, but it doesn't really stay on him very well. Just kind of holds on with tension around the neck. Looks pretty nice though. I like that sculpting there. But yeah, sometimes I think that they need like a little peg or something like that to go in the back just to kind of help those capes stay on, especially if they're going to be standing outside of the cockpit. But here he is in his kind of pilot mode as we're going to be putting him in there. So full black with just that painted silver belt detail. Really interesting. And of course, we're going to be able to, oh, nice and smooth there. Some arms are a little bit stiff and they're so small, you got to really sort of gingerly sort of get it up there because you don't want to snap them off. But he looks cool. And of course, they also articulate there at the waist. Now, of course, he's got those lower robes, so it does give him a bit of a skirt appearance without his cape. But again, he's going to be all black pretty much and inside the cockpit. So I'm not really going to see this much later on. But I like that about this range, that we've got these little figures. It works a little bit better for ones with a clear, large cockpit window like an X-Wing, where we can see that bright orange figure inside. For TIE fighters, they get lost in there. But of course, I like that it's consistent across the range. Every vehicle comes with a figure of some sort. Interesting that Darth Vader's Sith Interceptor was a smaller class of vehicle, therefore a cheaper one, and that came with 2 minifigures. This one in the Starfighter class only comes with 1 figure, but there's no astromix here. I don't know what else they would put in it. And generally, Jazwares doesn't give us extra minifigures for the vehicles, only enough to sort of fit in there. Sometimes I kind of wish that they would give us a few extra just to kind of maybe make a scene with some of the minifigures, especially if you want to put yours outside. But nope, we get the pilot and sometimes an astromech. Sometimes we get, you know, 1 or 2 extra ones to kind of go with a larger vehicle like the Millennium Falcon. So I understand there isn't really any other extra characters that we can put with this one. But enough about the little Darth Vader character. Just going to collect up all of these little extra things. These little packaging pieces are really helpful, I find, if you want to just keep your figures somewhere safe. Somehow sort of making them bigger means that you're just less likely to lose them. So I'm going to keep him with his cape and pop him off to the side so we can take a look at the main vehicle, of course. This is why you're buying this vehicle in the first place, of course. That figure is just a bonus, which is always fun. So there's some features on this one that are really quite interesting and fun and a little bit different. But I'm just going to go over just the general sort of sculpting and the details first. Of course, we've got that iconic TIE Fighter wing panel here. I love the textures on these. It's a really fun texture. It's quite, you know, detailed. It's almost a sort of a soft texture when you rub your finger over it. It just feels really nice. I love these sculpted detail panels. Very sort of a mid-gray on this one. I think it's kind of interesting. I know for some people, they think of TIE fighters especially as sort of different colors. Sometimes, depending on the lighting, the color grading of the finished film, the studio scale models and sort of CG renders were often slightly different colors to what we think of them on screen. And then, of course, you have the Kenner toys and those plastic colors sort of throwing into the mix. So it kind of depends, collector to collector, what color feels the most true for you. I'm kind of always torn. Sometimes I feel like it's the classic gray. Sometimes I feel like maybe more of that sort of blue tint. I think that that's interesting. Now I do have the Hot Wheels Starships Select Darth Vader TIE Advanced on hand because they are different colors and I want to see them side by side, but that's for a little bit later. Let's go over this one. I really like the gray. It feels very imperial, I think. When I think of the Empire, I think of just that sort of grayscale, white, gray, black, and those little touches of red from side to side, because of course we get those little red notches there at the front. That's basically the only sort of splash of color we have on this one, just that sort of imperial red right there at the front for sort of the laser cannons there. Very nice. All this black detail. I love these panels. On the whole, really tidy. We've got like maybe just a tiny little misalignment here along this outer edge, but at least it's not sort of like a sloppy edge. Even that black line is very, very straight. And of course, I didn't see this wing panel because it was packaged like this in the box. I could see this panel and this one here. Sometimes you sort of notice those tiny little details on the sides and angles that you couldn't quite see when you're choosing your specific toy in the toy store. So minor misalignment there, but it's not so bad, not like black on this gray panel where it shouldn't be. It kind of looks more, just a little bit more like a shadow, especially since it's on the lower edge. You're really not going to see that once you put it on your shelf. Of course, this one has to sit on its wings. It doesn't come with a display stand, which is a little bit unfortunate, but that is par for the course for the Micro Galaxy Squadron line. And a small exception to that one was the Outland tie, the one that Moff Gideon comes with. Because the wings on that one fold down, it came with a very small clear stand to kind of prop it up so it didn't just look like a flat sandwich on your display. And I kind of wish that this had something similar to just kind of prop it up, just so it doesn't look so awkward, kind of just landed straight on its wings. But there's a lot of ships in this range that kind of have that problem as well. The TIE Fighter is just unique in that it's never designed with landing gear. So a different discussion for a different time. There are some fantastic third-party fans that have made their own sort of stands that you can buy from separate sellers. 3D printed stuff is all sorts of fun. So if you really, really want to stand, or of course you've got the old sort of fishing line trick and suspending it up in the air, because there are some really interesting attachment points on this one, which I'll get to in a minute. But I really like the sculpting on this. Of course, we've got that clear window here in the front. That's always a perk of this line because we've got those little figures. We need to be able to look in the cockpit. Of course, Darth Vader's black. We're not really going to see him in there, but I like that we can actually see through here, and we can see some of the gray plastic cockpit details just through the front there, the sort of the controls. I think that that's really fun. Of course, there are so many iconic sort of cockpit shots in Star Wars. I like that I can actually look through that window there and see the interior in there. Really nice. Very nice, clear sort of painting around the edge there, nice and tidy. For the rest of it, apart from the black panels, we don't have anything else. It is just the sculpting, which of course does eliminate a lot of those sort of little errors and flaws. Sometimes with the Micro Galaxy Squadron line, there is a lot of weathering on specific ships in the line, and weathering can really throw off whether you like the look of a ship or not. And even from just toy to toy, I've seen some of the same ship on the toy store shelf. One is very heavily weathered, one is very lightly weathered, and it can really depend on your specific preferences as a collector, which one really grabs your attention. I tend to lean more towards this slightly lightly weathered side, just because I find if there is sort of a little bit of a heavier on one patch or a little bit of an inconsistency, it tends to show up less in the light weathering. When it's really heavy, if it's heavier in one section, it really stands out. But no weathering here, so you're pretty much good to go. There's nothing that's really going to sort of draw my attention here. I just love all those straight lines. There is so much kind of just a sort of common design language in the Imperial design with these lines. It almost looks like the surface of the Death Star itself, like a little bit of a trench run going on here down that center. Really cool. So one of the features on this particular one, which I wasn't really expecting, it's been a while since I've looked at the back of the packaging, was that the wings on this one do actually come off. So I thought I might pop them off now because it will let me look at some of the details a little bit closer up with the wings off. This is always a little bit nerve-wracking. I generally don't like to remove things off my toys lest they not fit back on again, but we can see the attachment point for that one, just a small peg. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at the internal design here. So there is a little bit of a channel here, and looking at the side where we just took it off, there is a bar there, so that's going to fit into that slot there to make sure that your wings are not going on sort of angled. They're going to line up really nice, and that was just a nice sort of tight fit. It didn't click. I don't feel like I'm going to break anything pulling it off, which is very important. I don't want a feature to feel like I'm stressing the plastic in any way. Cue a flashback to the General Grievous ship. There is an aspect on the back of that one that when you sort of put it down, it pulls against the plastic and it feels like it's going to break. That was a particular sort of design feature of the General Grievous ship that I felt was misdesigned. There is something wrong with the plastic there because I feel like I'm going to break it when I move it. So very happy that this one came off nice and cleanly. We'll go back on. Not really a feature that collectors really need, but it does let me look at that internal design. Of course, we can see that same fantastic TIE Fighter panel design there. Really nice. All these sort of design shapes that looks like sort of the trench run where Luke shooting at the exhaust port shape there. Just fantastic. So nice. Again, really nice tidy black panels. I like that interior patterning there. Of course, we're not really ever going to see that much when it's on display, and of course that's going to tuck neatly in there. Just having a look there, seeing it, that line is all lined up, presses in there nice and firmly, and it feels sturdy. I can hold it by the wings and I don't feel like they're going to come off, which is important. I don't like it, especially because it's resting on the wings. If these felt loose or just susceptible to sort of wobbles by taking them on and off. And again, on the other side, just snaps off really nicely. So this one has a little bit of the copyright text on the side, nicely hidden. It's a little bit faint there because it's just a raised part of the plastic. It's not printed there. We can see the copyright note there, 2022, Jazware's Lucasfilm, all of that kind of stuff there. That same attachment point, slightly different shaped channel on this one actually. This one has a long bar, not a small section, so that's going to help you. I was worried about whether you'd accidentally get your wings mixed up. So that one, we can see we've got the full bar and a full attachment point, and that one again lines up really nicely. Just looking back at this one, just to confirm my memory there, we've got a segment there. It's not the full bar, so we can see that bar there has a cutout. So those are nice little touches. So where you can't actually put the wings on the wrong side. There we go. Because of course they're kind of symmetrical. I wouldn't want to sort of put them on the wrong side, or maybe back to front. That does help you there. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so another one of the features which I thought was kind of interesting is the back panel is going to lift up. So let's check that out. I can see the sort of seam line of the plastic here. I can see we've got a little bit of a place to get in with the fingernail, and we can lift this up. And then we have sort of an exposed engine panel. I can see we've got a little peg and a hole just to kind of keep that closed. It didn't feel like it clicked shut. Some of the panels that you can open on the Micro Galaxy Squadron line feel like they really click shut, and it feels like it's a little bit of a stress on the plastic to open and close them all the time. But that one just kind of sits there. There's no firm click, and it just opens up. Even though there's an attachment peg, it almost just feels like it's sitting there. So again, really nice. No paint details underneath there, but just some really fun sculpting, just giving us a little bit of something extra, because this one doesn't have landing gear or quite as many other sort of moving features. So we've got the wings and this extra little panel there, even some design elements there on the underside. A little bit flat, but we've still got some lines. All sorts of fun stuff going on back there. So that's what that looks like from the back. I like that the feature doesn't draw too much to the eye. It doesn't look like a big sort of play panel or anything like that. The line, it does sort of cut across there a little bit. I can see where that panel is, but the lines generally work with the actual surface texture that's part of the sculpt there as well. So kind of cool. Probably not something I'm necessarily, it honestly doesn't bother me either way. It could probably be there or not. I'm not really going to play with that. Just something fun to go over during this unboxing. So of course, we've got to get this minifigure in here. So we've got a top cockpit. There's something about this line that looks like it's just sitting slightly higher. We've got a clear panel, I think. We can see that notch there where we can just sort of lift that up. Oh, I thought that might be clear. That's just painted black. Okay, so you can see we've got flat, opaque plastic there. That is not, we're not going to be able to look down and see Darth Vader in there. That is just painted black. I thought it looked dark, but I thought it would be clear plastic, but nope. And that doesn't fully bed down on mine. That feels like that would be fully clicked in, but it's just kind of sitting up just a little bit. So I don't know if it's fully supposed to bed down. I can kind of click it down and then it pops back up. But either way, it's probably just my one. Sometimes you just get those tiny little shavings of plastic that just kind of get in the way. So now I can see the inside of the cockpit, and if I pull it this way, you can see all the way through to that clear window. You can just see the internal cockpit design, those plastic pieces just in front of the window. We can see all the way through, but without light shining in the top. As soon as we close it, you just completely lose the ability to see through there. But we've got a fun sculpted seat in there. This one doesn't have a peg or anything to sort of fit in between Darth Vader's legs because he has that skirt, that sort of robe section. Nothing can go up between his legs. So he's probably going to rattle around in here a little bit. But then because we can't really see the figure through, it doesn't even really matter if he's in there or he's upside down or whatever. And another aspect to it is I can raise that seat. You can see that seat section that he would be sitting on popping up and down. There is a button on the underside, well, just a panel really, that you can push. Now this is commonly found underneath the astromechs in X-Wings and the like, so that you can sort of pop them out of the astromech port, because once you drop a figure in there, that's going to be impossible without tweezers to get that figure back out there with adult-sized hands. So you can sort of pop that out and sort of spring him out, or at least sort of fire him out from the upside down to get him out. Not that it really matters. Once he's in there, I'm not really going to take him out or anything like that, but I feel like that's kind of a useful play feature for younger fans that might want to sort of be putting figures in and out of cockpits. So let's see how Vader's going to look in there. So I'm just going to take his cloak off because we're not going to need that. Of course, I guess if you're a little bit worried about losing pieces, you could just throw that cloak in there for just storage capacity, really. I was almost surprised that there wasn't like a little cargo bay in the back here that you could just lie his cloak in underneath that panel. But they do try to keep their ships in world, so I understand that he doesn't have a cloak storage bay. So getting Darth Vader into his cockpit mode there with his arms and legs up. This is going to be a little bit tricky. I don't know that it's necessarily going to sit in here. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm just sort of holding on to his helmet. He's going a little bit to the side. I think that's okay. He's kind of sitting in there. I can't quite tell where his feet are. I think because there was just a little bit of a corner. You can kind of see the corner of that cockpit panel there. I was trying to make sure that his feet were kind of going under that, not over it, so he didn't have his feet resting on the windshield there. And he can sort of fit in there. It looks like his helmet's just a little bit close to the top, but because it's domed, it's not really going to fit in there. And I can't see anything. I know he's in there, but he's plain black, so I'm not seeing any detail. But I know that when I walk past this on display, I know that there's a Darth Vader in the Darth Vader's TIE Advance. So that's all I need to know. I know that he's in there, just like many of the other vehicles from this line. Some of them, you can clearly see them through those clear windows. TIE fighters, you just can't. But I like that it's consistent with the range, that we've still got a little pilot figure in there. Overall, this is really cool. It is quite light, but then of course you can't make toys bulkier than they should be. But they're trying to be in scale and accurate with this line, so it doesn't need extra. It doesn't need to fire little plastic, pellets or anything like that from the front. It's not really a. If you want those sort of play features, then you've got the Mission Fleet line for younger fans or older fans if you want some play features there. Ships are quite good. I do like that, but if you're looking for sort of a accurate representation, this is really cool. And of course, one of the fun aspects of the Micro Galaxy Squadron line is the fact that it's in scale, roughly, to the rest of the line. So you put TIE fighters next to it, they'll look really cool. It'll be in scale with X-Wings, and you can really build up an awesome Star Wars vehicle display. So I'm really happy with this one. It was in its box for a while. I don't know, that gold launch edition sticker had really caught my eye, and it sort of put me off from opening them, especially a cool ship like this. But now that I've opened up most of the rest of my collection, I'm working my way back and just opening up those final few from Series 1 so that I can get all of my Micro Galaxy Squadron ships on display. So very excited to have this one open. Really, really cool. Not much in the way that's sort of bothering me. Just that one sort of little line there that's not quite lined up. There's nothing that's sort of broken, nothing's really standing out to me. A little display stand like the Outlander one, that might have helped a little bit because it will just sit there, but on the whole, this is what I expect from the Micro Galaxy Squadron line, sitting on this on your display surface without a stand. So it's pretty much what it says on the box. Everything works, everything looks cool. I'm excited. So I mentioned earlier that I had recently opened up the Hot Wheels Starships Select version, and I wanted to see the two side by side. So I'm just going to pop that one over here. So you can see this version, the Hot Wheels version, is very much blue compared to this one. And if I bring them up really close, this one has weathering on it. As I mentioned, some ships in the Micro Galaxy Squadron line have weathering. The Hot Wheels ones, you can see it looks, you can see the grey weathering really sort of on the front there, and a lot on the back as well. Of course, no clear cockpit, just painted on that one. Die cast metal, so it is quite heavy. And they're not supposed to be in scale, but I just thought it'd be interesting because I know for Star Wars fans and collectors, sometimes you have to pick and choose between different product lines. And when it comes to Star Wars Starships, these are two very popular product lines that I myself find myself comparing between the two. I love collecting both, but I know not everyone has that option. So just thought it'd be interesting to see these two side by side in case that's helpful for anyone that's trying to decide which Darth Vader TIE Advanced do I want. This one's very light, doesn't come with a display stand, but I like the sharper detail on this one. Sometimes with that sort of die cast finish, it's a little bit rounder, particularly on pointed edges, because you've got that thick paint over the top, and things like this top piece here, because it's all sculpted in one piece, the cockpit doesn't open, so we've just got that top one. It's all kind of sculpted with that thick paint there. And of course the color, this one is blue with some dark gray weathering, this one is light gray, and that's going to be a big sort of selling point for some collectors, the color. I honestly don't mind either way. I can see the fun and sort of negatives of both of them if you're a stickler for sort of studio models or how it appears on a screen, or perhaps you're nostalgic about toy versions that you've had in the past as well. And for me in New Zealand, there's not too much difference in the price point between these two ships. This one costs a little bit more, but this one does come with a flight stand, a little bit smaller, no little minifigure, and it's kind of more of a display piece. This one, great for display, but also has some play features as well. So some really interesting differences between these two. I think they look really cool together. If you're just an Imperial fan and you want just Imperial ships, these two look really cool together as well, if that's kind of more your thing. Maybe you just want full TIE Fighter collection. These two look really cool together. I kind of get them as just sort of different versions. Maybe this one's like a comic book version and this one's like, you know, a replica of something on screen. But yeah, really fun. I'm just loving the fact that we've got multiple options for Star Wars vehicles. And of course, you've always got those larger Hasbro 3.75-inch scale vehicles as well, the sort of original ones going all the way back to the Kenner era if you want larger ones. Then you've got Mission Fleet for kids. They're working their way through lots of different vehicles and things like that. So if you love Star Wars Starships, there's just so much fun stuff to be had. These ones are very affordable priced, just a little bit more than a Funko Pop vinyl for us here in New Zealand. And I certainly am trying to collect up as many of both lines as I can. I'm very fortunate enough to be able to have some from Series 1 going all the way back. I'm glad I didn't have to hunt this one down. I was able to find it locally. That's not always the case for us here in New Zealand. Sometimes when there's new toy lines, I look longingly online as all of my friends in America are buying them, and I have to wait a long time for them to hit in New Zealand. But the Jazware's Micro Galaxy Squadron line was stocked right from the beginning. Not so much now anymore. It's become very hard to find in New Zealand, but I'm just happy to have an iconic ship like this in my collection. I had so much fun unboxing it, and I think these two look great together. Don't think I can pick a favorite though. I like them both for different reasons. So this has been so much fun. Just another iconic OG Star Wars vehicle. This was just a lot of fun to finally get out of the packaging, and I can add it to my display. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today as I opened up another Star Wars vehicle and checked out all of the details, did a comparison, and just had a lot of fun. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again very soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you're a Micro Galaxy Squadron fan, I've also unboxed Darth Vader's Sith Interceptor. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as a whole Micro Galaxy Squadron unboxing playlist. This is the way.